Is he coming in? I'm hoping he's not just vetting my questions as I him arriving actually brings up the question that I kind of did want to ask you about, having rewatched this recently in anticipation of this, which is that Prey, Predator, Killers, and Badlands all have this kind of recurrent theme of parents and children, or living up to certain expectations. Maybe just, when you were sort of conceiving these, was that, not to be cynical at all, was that like a sort of dramatic boilerplate, or was that something that in these you felt was particularly ripe to be explored?
I think it comes from just a personal tendency that I really am drawn to father-son stories, parent-child stories. There's the Field of Dreams, beautiful version of that, but there's also, Magnolia is one of my favorite movies of all time. There's a line in Magnolia where someone says, you may be done with the past, but the past ain't done with you. Mm-hmm. And that thematically, I think, is the most important thing for us to mind. If we only dealt with that issue, then we'd have the answers that we need to thrive as people. So I'm always drawn to that. And of course, especially in Killers, we need to get to the emotional core of a story very quickly in the short stories. And Badlands, we had to connect to a horrifying looking monster and get on his side very quickly and ensure that we started in a very emotional place. So went to the core that I tend to go to.
Sure.
Yeah.
I am watching the physical media of this kind of commentary. I understand that the first shot of Predator Badlands is actually a shot that you had originally conceived for Prey. Is that right?
Someone else asked me that, and now I'm realizing I may have just articulated myself incorrectly in the very late night that we were recording this.
This guy's standing behind me.
So no, what it was it initially was meant to mirror the opening of Prey.
Gotcha.
Prey opens on sort of this nature documentary feel of the 1700s and in the Great Plains, and it was maybe we do the same thing where it feels like we're in a nature documentary on this alien planet, Yalta Prime. And then for one of the trailers, we took that first shot and letterbox it, had the letterboxing expand. I don't know, I think that only aired in one format, IMAX or something. And we loved the way that felt, how it really drew you in to the movie. And so, for the real thing, couldn't do letterboxing of black max that expand. And that's where we had the idea of, maybe we have it be the mouth of a cave that we're pushing through, and then it feels like the format is expanding, even though it isn't. So I thought changed it. But it started with thinking we were going to mirror Prey.
Sure. Well, the reason I was sort of asking that is because I'm curious how many of the ideas that end up either being recurrent or get developed as individual films started in this sort of pool of concepts maybe that you were coming up with, and then you were like, well, this actually works better in this story versus this story versus this story.
There definitely were some things when we were doing Killer of Killers that I was like, oh, I actually want to groovy idea for a bit of choreography or a weapon that was we might want to save that for Badlands. But at the same time, in Killers, there's the Zamboni sort of vehicle that comes out and pushes the backbiter away, and it was such a cool design that we decided to bring that into Badlands, which had no hover. We call them hover hogs, but no hover bike, no nothing. And it then became a huge part of the opening, and also Father's character with his vehicle, and all came from that cool design in Killers that we just wanted to, give more screen time.
Sure. Alec, I mean, you more or less literally wrote the book on these creatures. You know, when he comes to you with sort of, or the idea of one of these movies happening, do you have a vocabulary or a collection of images that are like, hey, you know, we haven't used these, or we haven't spotlighted these? Is there anything like that, or what is that collaboration like when you first get started?
Well, it always starts off with the conversations, you know. I like to listen a lot. Sometimes I feel like, you know, like on Prey, you know, like I might have been listening too much, and I'm in the back of my mind thinking, does he think I just don't have any opinions? Because I love to hear what Dan has to say about it, because he always comes in with with something unusual. Like on Prey, one of the things he said was, I want this to be a horror character. And that was something that really resonated with me, because the first one, you know, with Arnold's movie, when you saw that face, that was horrific. But we know that face very well now. So if you want to do this from a, you know, the indigenous people's point of view, and they're completely, they don't know this character at all. So he'll say things like that, and then that makes me, you know, that gives me ideas to run with my team. But there are times Dan will say things like, well, you probably have like folders full of stuff, and I think I ended up just sending you everything.
Yeah, when I got the job for when they said yes to Prey, I was like, great. Where's give me the Bible? Give me all the what's the, you know, the Rosetta Stone of Predator? And they had zero. There was no, like, Star Wars has this guy Pablo Hidalgo, like, you know, the archivists, you know. And thankfully, we decided to work with Alec and Tom at the time, and because I was just thinking about this the other day. It's a bit of a tangent, but I frequently feel like I try to work with people that haven't done something before, rather than the grizzled veterans of whatever their department is, so that they have a little bit more to prove, and they won't be just clocking in and clocking out. And I remember when Alec was first brought up, I was like, you know, they've really done it a lot, and I wonder if there's sort of new folks that haven't. And then I met Alec and was so charmed by him, but also it's hard to have done all the great stuff that Alec has done and still want to do new things. And they were really anxious to not just stick to the tried and true and try to find new ways in. But Alec did thankfully have the folders. He had the documents that was the franchise's history, and it's really hard to find the adjectives to describe what makes something feel gaucho or just feels like it's part of the Predator visual grammar. But all of the work that ADI and Alec had done over the years was really the key to understanding that design language, and they had a bunch of things that we either used or just riffed on that were designs that were rejected over the years from the different movies. I don't know if you can recall if there was anything specific that was like, this was actually made for that, and we ended up...
You know, it's funny because just now seeing, I missed the premiere to Killer, so this is my first time seeing it on a big screen.
Oh, cool.
Like this.
Oh,
I watched it at home, but this is a big, and it's gorgeous, by the way. Congratulations on the film.
Congrats to you. Thank you.
Like some of those tusk, you know, the tusk characters with the masks that have the big tusks. I feel like there's something like that we did for the first AVP R. No, sorry, AVP R. For the first AVP, and I think that we spun off onto, which was really cool, by the way. When, like, this is another great thing about Dan is he's creating the Bible. He is. It has been sort of ad hoc along the way with, like, you know, another director comes in and they have cool ideas and we do that, you know, and then and a lot of times the studio doesn't let us do very much that's different in the past. But Dan is creating the Bible for the universe, we've gotten spoiled with the glut of great stuff that he's brought with these 3 films now. But we do go back and look at this stuff, the old designs and stuff. But you never want to just do the same. You want to put a spin on it. And Dan always has great ideas.
Sure. Well, speaking of people with something to prove, Demetrius, your performance is just incredible. I mean,
Woo!
so you talk about coming into this and like sort of what your ambitions were and what the expectation was that was placed on you, because this is not only a predator, but it is a very different kind of predator, different story about a predator than we've ever seen before. So were there things that you came in and you're like, oh, I feel pretty free because that's different, or was it something that you felt like you were standing so high on the shoulders of giants that it was a lot of pressure?
Yeah, that's a good question. I just want to say what's up, everyone. Thank you for how are you? But yeah, I'll be honest, it was daunting at first. Kind of when Dan and I had like our first Zoom, when he was telling me like that I had the job, I was playing it cool. And then as soon as I closed the laptop, I was like, oh frick, I don't even know if I can like really pull this off. Like, this is a big feat.
Because you didn't even know it was Predator. You knew monster or creature or whatever it was.
That's the thing about this guy. He didn't even tell us what we were auditioning for.
Yeah.
He just said come through a creature and see how it goes. But yeah, once Dan had kind of filled me in on all the details, and I started kind of diving into the lore of the Predator. Like literally, I looked it up on YouTube, and there was like a 3-hour long video, and I was like, oh shucks, this is gonna be a lot of trip. But yeah, I kind of just took it in stride. Dan had a lot of trust in me from the jump, I feel, and yeah, kind of just told me, go off the own kind of prep, the own study, and come on set and we'll correct it when it needs to be corrected. And I think we got in a really cool flow of finding Dick and where he sits physically and where we wanted him to kind of go on his journey. And yeah, it was a fun process, but I'm not gonna sit here and say that it was a piece of cake. I was terrified, like especially in the first initial like month, trying to prep for the character. But yeah, like Dick, you just gotta take it on the chin, try and prove yourself, and yeah, we came out with something we're really proud of.
Sure. Well, as you're sort of writing this Bible, as Alec was sort of describing, the thing that's different between this and the Alien franchise, the aliens are like an infestation, but they're not a culturally advanced species. Whereas we have technology here, we have this advanced species. And I started thinking, I'm like, do they have shopping malls on Yacht Prime? Are there these personality, more mundane, more intimate kind of details that the two of you working with Demetrius, or just in the writing of this, that the two of you were like, oh, this is actually something that's very much about a personality that would be very isolated to this creature, that would not be, indigenous to this species, but not, that made this story that much more, brought it to life that much more vividly.
I mean, I don't think that they are a species that has shopping malls and garbage men. And I've always viewed.
Well, they definitely have to have like the Zamboni to take.
It's true, they do have Zamboni. It's true. But
somebody's got to get rid of the bodies.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. I've always viewed them as a more barbaric Frank Frazetta painting come to life, sword and sandals, nomadic culture, and I also think that Deck's personality and spirit is probably not shared by many of. I don't know that he'd be the only one. And certainly he has an older brother that feels a little bit separate from the tribe as well. But I don't think many of them are quite like Deck.
Were there things that you, in reading the script or just thinking about how you're developing this role, you were like, I think he should do this, or I think this is a quality that I want to bring, whether he's facing off against somebody. The thing that's really interesting about your character is that he's got this Terminator and Terminator 2 kind of thing, where he's like, he's got to be funny, but he's also doesn't know he's being funny. He's very serious. And there's obviously the sort of traumatic experience that starts this, but the movie has levity. in addition to being as serious as it could be? Were there things in there where you were like, I can really drill into these and build around them that go into those other sequences?
Yeah, I mean, definitely after kind of finding Dick, you know, it was just about playing what was written truthfully. You know, just playing it, and you know, it was an amazing writer. You know, as you can obviously see. So, yeah, and having a Yautja paired with, you know, just a synthetic who cannot stop talking. You know, Yautjas are quite stoic and they don't say too much. So having that pair literally tangled together for the whole movie, you know, you're gonna find funny moments in it, even though they're not playing the joke, if that makes sense. Like, it was just, yeah, playing as truthfully as I could, and Dick is just mostly annoyed at this talk the whole time for, yeah, kind of crashing his party, trying to find Callus. But yeah, honestly, a lot of it was, yeah, just really good writing and really knowing where the story was going. It was, yeah, it was kind of easy to play my part with the images.
But there's also a pretty delicate balance that Demetrius struck, in that, you know, we see a lot of the same kind of movement in creature work. Alec can attest to this. And there is a way when you get in that suit that it can feel really false if you don't hold yourself in a certain way, and you can start to feel like sometimes that even that comes across like professional wrestlers lumbering around,
Sure.
you know, which is what we had been accustomed to in earlier films and other films with man in suit stuff, and but on the flip side, it can completely fall apart if someone doesn't hold themselves just so. But also, what made Dex so special, what made Demetrius so special, is moving in a way that feels like someone with a chip on their shoulder, feels like someone with something to prove, and feels like relatable, yet also completely unrelatable. Very hard to pull it off, because one detail wrong and you start to feel like that's just a guy in there, and it feels too human, but you can also feel not human enough, you know. So really did come down to a lot of specific choices that Demetrius made, and conscious and subconscious probably, but not everyone could do what he did.
Well, Demetrius, I understand that you not only did the voice, of course, of your own character, but you did your father's character as well. What kind of a head trip was it to play opposite yourself in that experience?
That was, I'll be honest, I like hated it at first day when we were in the room and I had to read for Father, because the whole time I'm doing the film, like, my motivation is this guy killed my brother, you know what I mean? I've been trying to prove myself to him my whole life. I've never been accepted. Like, this guy sucks. Anyway, so then
I didn't say that.
So when I had to kind of go into the ADR room and start reading Father's lines, you know, back to Dick, I was like, oh, maybe I can have a little fun with this. Like, you know, this is a whole different kind of side that I never got to really experience while I was shooting. So yeah, it was really cool. I really enjoyed it. It's nothing I've ever done before where I've had to kind of voice for two characters. So yeah, it was a fun experience.
I also, based on the commentary, I think also the costume for the Yautja was actually made by a costume designer as opposed to by the visual effects or.
You know, or normally that's always fallen under Alec's department, and because usually the Predator is this complete package of he's the bad guy, he's a all guy in suit thing, and we had the incredible pleasure of working with Nyla Dixon, who won like an Academy Award for Lord of the Rings movies, and really approaching them like specific characters, individual characters, and yeah, I mean, it turned out tremendously. I mean, I will say a lot of credit goes to the concept artists. A lot of times that's fashioned with Nyla, but I would say specifically for the father character, there's this artist Dane Hallett who's worked across Alien and Predator and many other movies. And this thing was like his first drawing. It was just like that. A lot of the other times we're like iterating and finding our way through it. But this thing was just so arresting. And I didn't even know until Nyla and the Weta folks started to build it. It was very gestural and a beautiful painting, and I was like, oh, that's like teeth on there, and that's chain. Like I could not even reckon with it until seeing it in person. So, but yeah, Nyla was incredible.
Alec, can you talk about, given your sort of institutional knowledge of this franchise and of this world, like how your involvement has evolved throughout the franchise? Because obviously there are certain things that are clearly being taken off of your plate, but what does that give you more room or opportunity to do?
Well, to put it in perspective, I did work on the original along with Richard right here.
Yeah. We acknowledge that the people you say hi already to the crowd, that Poncho knew stuff. I was like, out the corner of my eye, I'm like, are we gonna say something about this? Or is this happening? I'm so glad you're here.
Oh, I'm really
So
happy
cool.
to be here. You can.
Awesome.
It's great.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's just
but-
like I get to go back.
But it was funny, we were just having this conversation. He was involved in the original Predator when it was Jean-Claude Van Damme and the Monsters.
Mm-hmm.
So I came involved, I was working for Stan Winston after the movie shut down because of, they wanted to change the suit up. And we only had 8 weeks to build that monster, which has become so iconic. And it's the foundation of all of the lore that came after that.
Huge mythology.
And so as Dan was saying, what is the language of it? Well, the language of it was like a bunch of guys in their mid-20s trying to throw something together real quick under the guidance of the great Stan Winston.
Yes.
But, so we had like Asian influences in shoulder pauldrons, and we had like, I sculpted something on the leg that just reminded me of a 2000 AD comic book that I was reading at the time. So it was a mishmash of sort of organic and hard-edged, and all this stuff on the wrist was LED readouts that we scavenged. We got them from Radio Shack, So there's a lot of that. And that becomes like, is that their numerical system? Actually, it's on aisle 4 of the Radio Shack. So we've been kind of like refining and improving and building. I haven't done every single Predator movie. There's a couple that I have not worked on, but we try to say like, well, that isn't really working, and maybe the mesh net was a holdover from the 80s, or the fingerless Recaro gloves, or whatever those were. So we try to sort of like corral it into something meaningful, but this is the first time that we're actually really codifying things. And the other big change on Badlands is that I had to come to accept that as much as I am a lover of animatronics, and that animatronics, I think, give us so much tactile quality, I had to look at the script, and then when I saw Demetrius's tape, and in talking with Dan, I'm like, I kind of felt like I was the last one to understand this, maybe. but and you guys were great because you allowed. We did a test. Of a very streamlined mechanism, and I just had to agree. I just had to say, yeah. I think if you're gonna do a scene like where he comes out proud to see his father, he bloods himself and says, "Father," he's great. And then within 3 sentences, he's like, "What? Dad wants to kill me because I'm a disappointment." That's a big range of expression that I just didn't think that we'd ever do it, and the language hadn't been developed at one point. So I just didn't. So I had to step back from that, and the results are there because they're, that looks like a real flesh and blood face. That was a big adjustment for me, and that's a big change in how the responsibilities. And then also on this one, I had the pleasure of working with Weta Workshop on this, and I've known a lot of those folks for many years, but I'd never been over to New Zealand, so this gave me the chance to go over there and see Richard Taylor and ride on his miniature train in his backyard. And
Does he still have the same? He's got the same car that he's had for like 25 years.
he's got the
He's
same
driving around.
jacket, I think. Yeah, I was told that that's the same jacket. But and that was really wonderful because they have like a history behind them that is just unbelievable, and everywhere you look there's some iconic, beautiful handcrafted thing. And so that, you know, there was a really a very special project to work on.
Dan, you know, when you and I talked in November, one of the things that you said that stood out to me was you said you were infatuated with the idea of creating a movie that for you didn't exist within this world. Which is a very, it feels like it's a big needle to thread, but it's a pretty small one because you want to have something that doesn't betray what exists, but you want to open it up. Like, was there a point in the process when you were making this, when you were writing this, you know, when you were like, I think we've actually kind of like found that middle path where we're able to do all those things? Or was there a lot of negotiation that it kind of came together when you finally finished it?
I think we were really confident in the beginning. When we started to tap into, we had this incredibly emotional opening sequence, and then we found the idea of him using everything that he encountered, inverting what the original was, and having him really feel like Dutch in this movie. And we got Squirt on his shoulder as an organic shoulder. That was like, when that idea came, it was like, we have to make this movie. This has to be in theaters. Oh my God, I can't believe that could be a movie moment. And then, because it felt like all those things were wonderfully new and referenced to the original at the same time. Halfway through shooting, I suddenly realized, like, we could be making Howard the Duck right now. Like Howard, I have deep affection for Howard the Duck, but not many do. But you know, Howard the Duck came after Star Wars and ILM with George Lucas. ILM, they made these incredible duck costumes, and they were probably all like, "Oh my God, aren't we all? Look how bold we are! We're making this crazy movie with a duck in it," you know. And didn't turn out, you know. And that, I was like, and I'm looking around at, you know, Demetrius with his face, with the crazy costume, and you know, that's gone. But you know, that crazy thing, and like, people can mock us for ever thinking this was going to be a good idea. And I lived in that space for a very long time. I faked it, hopefully well in front of you. But I was like terrified for a while, and then we showed. I was talking to someone the other day. First person to ever see the movie outside of people that worked on it. In the Middle Director's Guide, we showed Drew Goddard, who I like met from doing Cloverfield Lane.
Sure.
Cloverfield. He happened to be on the Disney lot, and he was very supportive of Cloverfield Lane when he saw it, and I just felt like this movie wants to be his sensibilities, his blend of humor, humanity, and action, all that stuff. And you know, he as soon as it ended, I terrified, you know, tiptoed into the screening room, and he looked up and he was like, "Fuck you, man! This is so good." I was like, "Oh my God!" It was such relief. I don't know what your question was, but that wasn't answered. So.
No, you answered.
Okay, good.
Well, it's getting late, so I'm not going to take too much more time. But I am curious. You know, recently it was announced that Dan, I think you were given, was it the front door keys to Paramount Pictures? Is that
Front door, yeah, they gave me
okay. Front door keys. Yeah. But no, you have some interesting opportunities because this was such a home run.
Yeah.
And I'm curious where that puts your headspace after this movie was so well received and it was as successful as it was. Does it energize you to go, oh, well, now I have a lot more freedom and opportunities that you want to delve right back into this world? I mean, you've created 3 movies in a row in there, which is a lot of effort. You know, I mean, where's your head at with moving forward?
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm kind of, funny enough, in the same spot I was after Prey, in where we dreamed up Badlands and Kill of Killers, and just so happened that they were made at the same time. But I am thinking about a lot of different ways to go forward in the Predator franchise, and there's definitely, you know, the further adventures of this ragtag crew that are very exciting. I also continue to think about, you know, Badlands, Killers, and Prey are all like entry points. None of them demand that you have seen the other.
Yeah.
And they're not just sequels. They are interesting ideas for science fiction movies in and of themselves, let alone how they operate in the Predator franchise. So I'm jazzed about some ideas that are like that as well as direct sequel and some other things. So we've been figuring all that stuff out, while I'm also excited about making some big, awesome theatrical original movies with Paramount and then seeing, you know, looking through their toys as well. No, that's not me being elusive to anything specific. I swear. But
Trucks too.
I mean, that's fun. So, yeah.
Okay. Well, Demetrius and Alec, as we're wrapping here, I'm curious, given how successfully this was brought off, are there things still, not that you didn't do enough or whatever, but I always think about the fact that, like, Shannon Swift, who wrote a Friday the 13th movie a long time ago, and one of the things they kept talking about was having Jason in the snow. Like, that was like his thing that everybody always wanted, Jason Friday the 13th in the snow. Are there things that you would love to do, given the foundation that Dan was able to create here, you would love to go and do next?
To be honest, whatever Dan says goes, man. He's 3 for 3. You can't really knock it. And I
Very
think
diplomatic. Good.
No, but like honestly, the thing I respect the most about Dan as well is he doesn't make just any movies. Like he doesn't just, oh, this is gonna make money, you know, because this was really good, so we gotta get a second one out because it's, you know, it's gonna make bank. Like he really cares about the story. You know, he doesn't want to just be sitting in other interviews like just smash together figurines and, you know, try to figure it out. And I think as an actor and performer myself, I really value story. You know, storytelling is kind of what brought me to film in the first place, and the fact that Dan really takes his time and is really meticulous with, you know, every single detail. You know, that's why you guys love the film. That's why you love all three. It's because of the effort and care that he handles his work. So yeah, if another one comes to be, it's because Dan has found a really good story and wants to tell it. But yeah, it's whatever happens, guys.
Gotcha. Alec.
Well, one of the most exciting things to me is right at the end of Badlands, Mother. You know, we finally are gonna get, it's practically a promise. We finally are gonna get a female Predator. That's what I'm excited about. I'm putting words in Dan's mouth, but actually, Dan, if you think about the Ursa character, she's a bit of a prototype of a Predator mom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Alec and I have traded, we always trade interesting creature ideas, be it for Predator or anything else, and, you know, so that all starts pretty friendly and early in the process and all that, but yeah.
But I really love I love that, and then I love the idea of like the challenge of where you take the Predator culture if you show it writ large, and you cleverly downplayed it a little. I thought that was a brilliant move in the arena of, because we had these conversations, like, well, what are they? Are we developing a class system? Are they based on the Romans? Are they like, and then you're like, well, are we just turning them into Klingons? What are we doing here? And Dan said, well, how about this? How about the arena has like recesses and caves, and all you see are like the lights from their weapons or from their, you know, gear and all that stuff. And I thought that's freaking brilliant.
To be honest, that was a cost decision. The blinking lights can allude to character models that we didn't have to construct. But yeah, man, I'll take the.
Well, listen, let's have another round of applause for. Wonderful so much.
Thank you.